Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
They noticed a lot of things immediately about discrepancies between the size of the panel, the thickness of the panel.
Faux exhibit. The Vancouver Art Gallery unveils a new collection of fake sketches. Plus,
the need seems to double year over year.
Rising costs hit veterinarians and pet parents hard. One group is trying to help.
We've made so many friends because of her.
Just like coming home. I love her meatloaf and I love all the food that they make her.
It's one of the last remaining accessible spaces in the neighborhood where things are cheap, things are good.
It's awesome. I know the hands that are preparing my food.
And back in business, a beloved downtown Eastside cafe reopens after being hit by suspected arson.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A nearly decade-old mystery at the Vancouver Art Gallery has finally been solved. For years, the gallery has been working to authenticate a collection of sketches from a famed group of 7 artists. Now it's announced they're fakes. And as Belle Puri tells us, they're part of a new exhibit.
The sketches were trumpeted as the most significant historical donation ever received by the Vancouver Art Gallery, but it wasn't long before art experts started to ask questions.
They noticed a lot of things immediately about discrepancies between the size of the panel, the thickness of the panel.
The 10 oil sketches were thought to be by Group of 7 painter J.E.H. MacDonald. The group includes iconic landscape painters active in the 1920s and 1930s. In 2015, the sketches were billed as newly discovered and never before displayed. There were several red flags raised about the artwork. Some of the concerns were about the brush strokes. Some of the concerns were about the color palette and techniques generally used in the sketches. For instance, experts say MacDonald never included people in his initial sketches.
He would go out in the landscape, paint the landscape, and then he would make alterations to the work, add figures, do other things, make changes. And the artist who made this was obviously not aware of that. The gallery was told the paintings were buried for decades in the artist's backyard. In the 70s, they were reportedly dug up and bought by a family friend whose sons, another 40 years later, found the work stashed in a basement. Ultimately, it was the Federal Heritage Agency that discovered the truth. In microscopic bits of paint, it found colors not even available during MacDonald's lifetime.
We didn't have to look in detail into MacDonald's mixtures and pigments because the result was so clear at the outset that he couldn't have used those pigments.
The gallery has now turned that investigation into an exhibition.
The important thing is that we're transparent and human, and that we move forward in an authentic way. And I'm not embarrassed of that. I'm very proud of this exhibition.
The fake sketches are on display, attributed to an unknown painter. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Tens of thousands of new homes are slated to be built in Vancouver over the next decade. The Prime Minister pledged that this morning in partnership with the province and the city.
Governments have to make sure that housing is getting built and getting built in the right way. And that's what our Housing Accelerator is all about.
Trudeau says the deal comes with almost $115 million in federal funding through, as you mentioned, the Housing Accelerator Fund. It will see more than 3,200 new homes fast-tracked in the city over the next 3 years and more than 40,000 over the next decade. Trudeau says the deal means less red tape and more affordable rental housing. Meanwhile, last night, hundreds of protesters gathered outside a downtown Vancouver hotel where the Prime Minister was speaking. They called on him to cut off Canadian military support for Israel.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
The demonstration was organized in part by the group Independent Jewish Voices. They say they wanted to show solidarity with Palestinians and call on Canada to do more to end the Israel-Hamas war. The event included a menorah lighting to mark the 8th and final night of Hanukkah. Police were on hand outside the Weston Bayshore as the Prime Minister spoke to Liberal Party faithful at a private fundraiser inside.
The future is all about change right now. It's all disruption. And that's why it's so important for us to pull together as a team, roll up our sleeves and lean in on the work that needs doing.
Canada was among 153 countries to recently vote for a non-binding UN resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the conflict. A federal appeals court is partially reversing the dismissal of a youth-led lawsuit against the federal government. They're alleging Canada's policies and actions worsen the climate crisis and violate charter rights. The case is being brought forward by 15 teenagers from across the country. In October 2020, the lawsuit was dismissed by a federal court judge. The original ruling said it did not have a, quote, reasonable cause of action, and the case did not have a prospect of success. But now a panel of 3 Federal Court of Appeal justices unanimously agreed the young plaintiffs ought to have a trial. Lawyers for the lawsuit say an amended complaint will be filed early next year. Transit workers in Campbell River and the Comox Valley have gone on strike as of today, upsetting those who rely on public transit to get around.
I can't get to school if I don't have a bus.
I know a lot of people in my age group who use the bus, and we're all stuck now.
They say their employer has not come to the bargaining table with a good enough wage offer. Pacific Western Transit runs bus services in the region and is contracted by BC Transit. Unionized workers' contracts expired at the end of March. PW Transit says the union has rejected numerous offers from the company. Only essential Handy-Dart service will run during the strike. Negotiations, meanwhile, on the Rogers sugar strike have been put on hold over the company's plan to expand operations round the clock. Rogers Sugar Refinery wants to implement mandatory 12-hour shifts, including weekends. The union representing workers opposes that plan and has rejected the company's latest offer. The union says it will meet on Monday to work on a counteroffer. Workers have been on strike since late September. Rising costs are not just affecting the humans in your home. For those who have pets, everything from food to vet bills have gone up. We spoke with an agency that helps pet parents with financial challenges and some of those parents.
Her heart sounds good with these little tiny dogs. With all the costs that are rising in society in general, the cost of running a veterinary practice has just been going up very rapidly. So what happens is, of course, those costs do get passed on to pet human families because veterinary medicine is typically not a profession that has a high profit margin. So we're going to look at your teeth now, okay?
Cause for Hope, we're a BC animal welfare charity. Our programs provide various types of support aimed at keeping loved pets with their families.
Michi, come on, let's go. Come on. They pay 80% of my vet bills, and then I pay the remaining 20%. So a vet bill that would have cost me anywhere between $500 to $700, it kind of only ended up costing me, I think, about $100.
So we receive, on average, between 150 to 200 requests for help a month, and we simply do not have the funds to help everyone that needs help. And that the need seems to double year over year.
Something that would have cost like maybe $50 to $60 a couple of years ago is now looking like $100 to $125, depending on the vet that you go to.
We have publicly funded healthcare in Canada, and we're very fortunate for that. Because of that, I think sometimes people don't think about the cost of animal healthcare as much because they aren't used to seeing the cost of their own healthcare. So for pet guardians, we encourage planning ahead and looking into things like pet insurance, third-party payment plans, things that, can help bridge that gap where the vets do have to keep their doors open. They can't just give away services for free.
Good girl. Nietzsche has gotten me up and out of the house, and I suffer with fibromyalgia and depression. And between the two, I didn't leave the house for the longest time. But now we're out all the time, and we've made so many friends because of her.
Pet ownership is not a privilege that only some people should be able to benefit from. Like, these are family members, and this dog is providing an incredible mental health and physical benefit to this individual that is likely impacting her health, which has a positive impact on our healthcare system.
Honestly, if it wasn't for my pets, I probably wouldn't be alive. They give me a reason to live every day. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, good girl.
As we lean into the weekend, Darius Madavi is here to paint us a weather picture. What do we get?
Well, we had that system that was rolling up the south coast this morning, and then it started to come back down. Again, no radar coverage for the North Island, but they did get a good amount of rain. Going to continue to see that for a little while yet. In some places, at least some parts of the island. We did also have some flurries from that system break into parts of the interior. So you can see, even though we don't have radar coverage for the north and central coasts, they were getting rain as those flurries broke in here. And then this is where you start to pick that up on the radar. So we do have snowfall warnings in place for parts of the coast. We'll take a closer look at those later. But it's mostly for the inland central coast around Bella Coola, and then the inland north coast around Stewart. And then we do also have a warning for just east of Prince George, all expecting snowfall anywhere from 10 to 20 centimeters. Now, as we continue to see this system roll through, we're going to see that ridge of high pressure continue to build into the southern interior. And so this system is just going to roll down the mountain ranges along the BC-Alberta border, down the Columbia. So expect some snow there. But in terms of accumulation, we're not going to see, parts of the island have already seen the worst of it. You can see the North Island seeing less rain over the next 24 hours. We roll this forward another 48 hours. Not too much more happening on the south coast. It's really just the northwest where we continue to see a little bit more snowfall, but not too much at all. And if we zoom in, you can see not too much more accumulation coming. You can see it for the North Island. That's where we still continue to see that little bit of rain until that system does move into the interior. So tonight, just expect temperatures around seasonal, a little bit cooler than usual in some places, much warmer than usual in Fort Nelson, although not displayed here. And in Vancouver, nothing but a pretty calm skies and temperatures coming back up starting tomorrow morning.
Okay, we'll check in with you later. Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
Some of BC's biggest retailers say rising incidents of theft and violence in stores are plaguing their businesses. It's prompted dozens of them to call for government action. That was earlier this fall. But as Ian Hannah-Mansing is finding out, the solutions are unclear.
A brazen robbery caught on a security camera inside a London drugstore. A woman threatening staff, demanding a new mobile phone. Take a closer look. She's brandishing a cleaver that she took from the kitchen aisle. At another location in Vancouver, a disagreement turns dangerous. Cameras show an attacker chasing a man with a large knife. These are some of the videos London Drugs is sharing with CBC. They show distressing and even violent moments inside its stores across Western Canada.
What we see that really concerns us is the level of violence in particular. This is a people issue.
Clint Malman is the company's chief operating officer.
The violence against service workers in Canada has reached a crisis point, and we need politicians to recognize that they're behind the issue on this.
Give me some examples of violence that your employees have dealt with.
Sure. So an example is an employee just simply offering service to someone, and the person will again turn around, physically punch them, threaten them with a knife, hit them with an object, stab them with a needle. I never thought in all my years that I would have to be looking at purchasing stab vests, but that's exactly what we've had to do. That's insane in this day and age that in Canada that we're having to protect our employees like that.
The attacks can happen without warning. An angry customer trying to return a product throws hot coffee at a clerk. A man stealing vitamins from a store in the heart of downtown Vancouver uses bear spray on an employee as he flees. So London Drugs is a retail powerhouse in British Columbia. I don't ever remember you or anybody from the company taking a public stance on an issue. Like, why this one? Why now?
Ian, you're exactly right, but it underscores how concerned we are about the violence against our employees and against our customers, and the fact that in the communities we serve, how many times we hear from community groups, citizens groups, that this issue isn't being addressed.
To get a sense of how great the concern is, just take a look at some of the other major retailers that have joined London Drugs in a coalition called SOS, Save Our Streets, here in Vancouver and in communities across BC. But here's the problem. Even if the retailers are right that an increase in violence in stores has led to greater risk for customers and staff, what's the solution?
We have to look at the root cause of these problems, Ian, and they've always been the same. It's not rocket science. We know what the issues are.
Rob Danu spent years prosecuting people accused of crimes in Vancouver's downtown east side. He's now a defense lawyer in Abbotsford, an hour east of Vancouver.
Well, we're looking for short-term solutions to long-term problems is the issue. So we really need to back up and once again address those basic issues. That being said, in terms of immediate responses, businesses need to be vocal. So they're doing that. They're telling their politicians that something's wrong, but not just to be vocal, but also to be vocal about what needs to be done. Because when they're not telling our politicians that, look, homelessness is a problem around my business, addiction is a problem around my business, then you have politicians going on and trying to change the laws that actually don't pertain to the actual problem is.
I don't want to put everything on your shoulders, but you have a lot of experience, both as a former prosecutor and now as a defense lawyer. Is there a short-term or at least a medium-term solution to make things safer?
There's no short-term solution to these problems, Ian. We have to dedicate significant resources and expertise to mental health, to addiction, to homelessness and poverty. So although our businesses are under stress right now, we have to take a long-term approach to this.
To solve this problem, we first need to be a city that stops enabling this culture of drug addiction.
But Sunan Spriggs is tired of waiting for a long-term approach to make things better.
Help us find these women who smashed our store window in Vancouver.
She's pushing for action on social media, trying to identify people who have vandalized her business. She's the owner of City Luxe Boutique in Vancouver's downtown core. So just show me the damage you've had here.
Well, there's been multiple windows broken, so this window out here has been smashed, this one's been smashed, that one's been smashed.
Wow.
I can't remember if it was this one or this one, but one of those two is also smashed, and it's happened multiple times, so some of them have been replaced multiple times. You just kind of lost track.
How much does it cost to fix one of these?
Most, like, you can go from $4,000 to like $2,500, so it really varies depending on the cell.
$4,000?
Yeah, because they're actually very durable windows.
Oh my gosh.
Beyond the broken windows, there have been some surreal moments at City Luxe Boutique. A smash and grab right outside their door in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I just took it.
And this video was widely shared. That chair came from inside the store. A thief picked it up, carried it out before police picked them up a few blocks away. Spriggs says the big problem is addiction, and she believes not enough is being done to get people off drugs. In the meantime, her frustration grows. What does it feel like to walk in here in the morning and see that window smashed?
Honestly, it feels like you got punched in the face or punched in the stomach. Even though it's not a personal attack, it feels like a personal attack because this is your business, this is your baby. You're the one at the end of the day who's having to come out of their pocket to repair it. It feels like the same if somebody came to your house and you came home and it was vandalized. Yeah. It's personal, it feels personal.
Yeah. It's been almost 2 months since the big retailers went public with their concerns. London Drug says at its locations in Western Canada, this year alone, loss prevention officers have made 1,500 arrests. So you've been with this company for almost 40 years?
Yes.
Have you ever seen anything like what we're seeing now?
No, it's never been like this before. And it's the level of violence and what we hear people say that there's absolutely no consequences for the level of violence or theft. And that's why they continue to commit these crimes. And that's scary because that means that the chances are very high they're going to continue to commit those crimes.
Proper rehab. The proposals currently on the table to address mental health, addictions, and public safety issues in Nanaimo do not even scratch the surface, and we demand action.
Community groups and politicians in BC have railed against what they call catch and release, arresting a small number of repeat offenders only to see them quickly end up back on the street. But Rob Danu, the former prosecutor, says longer jail terms are not the answer. Some people are pointing out now that when what appears to be a crime is committed, whether it's a window being broken or a store employee being assaulted, that the system should be tougher, that those people should go to jail, they should be punished and not just let back out on the street.
Well, look, I started my career out as a Crown prosecutor, and I had that exact same view. It's a very black and white view of how the world and the law works. When I would ask for offenders to be sent to jail, they'd come back even worse. And then I asked for a longer sentence, and they'd come back even worse than that. And I learned, and the reason I moved over to a defense practice was that they needed treatment, they needed help.
Again, the key question, if the level of violence is unprecedented and unacceptable, is anything going to change? We wanted to ask BC's Minister of Public Safety, Mike Farnworth, his reaction to the coalition's concerns, but his office said he wouldn't do an interview. It did send us a statement that cited the province's Safer Communities Action Plan, adding it's starting to show progress on these complex public issues, though there's no detail on what's being done to try to reduce mayhem in stores.
And Ian Hannah-Mansing joins us now. What do experts say could help solve violence in thefts in stores?
Well, it's frustrating, right? And we got a sense of it in that story, is that there's clearly a problem. It's a problem from our research right across the country, but there is no easy solution. There's certainly not a short-term solution, but there needs to be a solution, right? Like, this is putting staff people in stores, but also customers potentially at risk. So later tonight on The National, we'll talk to some experts. I've done the interviews already, and what they say is kind of two things. First of all, in terms of the addiction part of it, we know here in Vancouver. The way of dealing with that is expensive, it's time consuming, but it's necessary, right? So we need to have that piece going. But the other thing nationally, especially, as they say, there's an increase in organized gangs that are getting people to steal in stores. That tends to create a whole different level of kind of ruthless violence. And in that one, it's policing and enforcement that has to deal with it.
Ian, thanks very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
The holidays are a time many people look forward to, but for some it can be very scary and a dangerous time of the year. Battered Women's Support Services in Vancouver says intimate partner violence can rise this time of year. For more on this, we're joined by its Executive Director, Angela Marie McDougall. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Dan.
Why do we see an uptick in intimate partner violence this time of year?
Yeah, well, it is a mix about the uptick. What we do see, certainly, and there's been some research that's come from the UK that tells us that, yes, there is an increase in violence. And it has to do, of course, with just the pressure that we see in families and the pressure to really have the holiday time be meaningful and to come together. And so often people are spending more time together. But we know that violence is, when domestic violence, intimate partner violence, it is happening regardless of whether there's a holiday or whether there's an event. But sometimes with the added pressure and expectations that we have around the holiday season, it can certainly create a bit more of a dynamic where abuse could increase.
And I guess factors such as if people are feeling financial pressures and partying, alcohol, substance use, that kind of thing as well, right?
Well, those things don't cause abuse, but they can certainly be aggravating kind of factors in the abuse happening. And it's certainly something that we want to work with survivors around and to think about in the sense of safety planning.
You mentioned data. Is there any specific data that Canada has or that you follow in this country?
Well, there isn't, but in the sense of peer-reviewed. But we know anecdotally through our work at Battered Women's Support Services that so often women that are dealing with violence, they will want to just kind of hunker down and sort of bear it out over the holiday season in light of not wanting to create kind of want to make everything to work for the holidays. There's a lot of pressure to have the family experience be, and all what you said in terms of the financial aspects and of course drinking. So these things are things that I know that victims and survivors are navigating. And and mostly we know that transition houses are full as well at this time. People tend to stay in place if they haven't left already, then or returned to abusive relationship. Then if they're in a transition house, they're going to stay. So there are some limited resources available during this time as well, in the sense of safe options.
I was going to ask, and we appreciate your time. What are the options that people have that even if resources are slim?
Well, I do think that anybody that's concerned about an abusive relationship certainly has that should reach out to their local transition house. For sure, there are transition houses all across British Columbia, and they often have 24-hour crisis lines, and it's a way to reach out and to talk through their circumstance. Our crisis line, of course, is available, and we have support workers who are available to help with safety planning and navigating difficult circumstances, and those are all really important things. And anybody that's concerned about a friend or a family member, this is also a time where you could reach out and to ask in a safe way if there's anything that they need, and then certainly to connect with a frontline organization like a transition house or us, Battered Women's Support Services.
Angela Marie McDougall, we appreciate your time and your perspective. Thank you.
Thanks.
A family's worst nightmare. An 11-year-old boy is killed when hit in the neck with a puck during hockey playoffs. A town left to grieve and ask why. That story's next.
Well, how about it? Time for another soda? Oh, out of luck, eh? Well, the way it goes, I guess. The end of the day. It's a shame, though. Pretty soon everything will be all picked up. Lights will be out, and there won't be a soul left. Guess we might as well move along and leave the place to the cats, eh?
The death of a young boy near Montreal has shocked his hockey community. The 11-year-old was struck in the neck by a puck. As Alison Northcott explains, he's believed to have been wearing the proper safety gear.
Outside the arena in Saint-Eustache, Quebec, expressions of grief and condolences after the death of an 11-year-old hockey player.
Au départ, on voulait offrir un bouquet de bon rétablissement.
We wanted to give him a get-well bouquet, says Mylène Larose. Then today, we learned the news. Police say the young player was hit in the neck by a puck during his hockey practice on Tuesday. He was rushed to hospital but later died.
We're all together in this. We're all sad about this news.
This player and his dad shaken by the news.
Everybody's talking about it at the arena here. It's like I said, it's something that we never want to happen to any kid.
Hockey Quebec says it believes the boy was wearing all the mandatory equipment, which includes a neck guard.
We try to have the best equipment possible to play that sport. Unfortunately, sometimes it's an accident and we don't know what to do with that, but it's really bad. It's really scary for the parents and the kids too.
And Adam Johnson back for Aston.
This comes after another deadly on-ice incident earlier this fall when player Adam Johnson died in the UK after his neck was cut by an opponent's skate during a game. In Saint-Eustache, where many had hoped the young player would recover, people are now mourning his loss. It's so sad, says Benoit Giroir. I have an 11-year-old too. In a statement, the Saint-Eustache Minor Hockey Association says the incident has shaken the organization and that it's working to support the players' teammates.
Police have called this an accident. Quebec's coroner's office says it will investigate to determine the cause of the boy's death and the circumstances around it. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Saint-Eustache.
It is the final day of sitting for the House of Commons before the holiday break. It was at times a tumultuous year for MPs and Canadians alike, but as Kate McKenna explains, some major legislation did get passed.
I'd like to wish all members a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year.
And with that, an end to the roller coaster sitting of the House of Commons.
I'm going home feeling very comfortable with the results, that we've been able to move forward with many investments for Canadians.
Canadians are hurting. This government doesn't realize it, and that's why it's intense in the House. And you've seen it in the polls.
I think things were very toxic in the House.
The sitting was marked by one major theme, the cost of living.
What Canadians know is that the Prime Minister has doubled housing costs, doubled the rent, doubled mortgage payments, doubled the needed down payments.
Mr. Speaker, it is shameful that the Conservative leader is exploiting the very real anxieties and fears of Canadians.
The government announced a carve-out to its signature policy, the price on carbon, by suspending it on home heating oil.
We heard you. We heard our Atlantic MPs and we heard Atlantic Canadians.
The move inadvertently gave fuel to the opposition, who want the tax scrapped altogether.
To axe the tax.
There was also an eventful visit from the president of Ukraine.
Canada's support for Ukraine with weapons and equipment has allowed us to save thousands of lives.
His visit was overshadowed by someone in the gallery. House Speaker Anthony Rota lost his job after recognizing a 98-year-old veteran who fought for a Nazi unit during the Second World War. Liberal Greg Fergus took over the chair. He also found his judgment questioned after making a partisan video in Speaker's robes, leading to multiple apologies and questions about his ability to continue in a highly divided House.
I am deeply sorry.
Despite the antics in the House, some major legislation did get through, including bail reform and a bill to remove the GST on new rental housing construction. The House is set to come back at the end of January. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
To the Middle East now. Israel says its forces have mistakenly killed 3 hostages kidnapped by Hamas. That news came just hours after the country announced it recovered the bodies of 3 other hostages. Chris O'Neill Yates has the details.
The Israeli Defense Forces say they mistakenly killed 3 hostages during ground operations today in the Gaza Strip. as they tried to take out Hamas militants and targets. It is not known if Yotam Haim, Samir Talalka, and Alon Shamriz were abandoned or had escaped from their captors. Earlier today, Israeli government spokesperson Elon Levy said that in the past 24 hours, they've identified the remains of 3 more hostages, 2 of them military personnel.
Corporal Nick Bizer and Sergeant Ron Sherman, who were abducted on October 7th, and Ilya Toledano, age 28, abducted from the Nova Music Festival.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other officials yesterday. One stated aim, getting more humanitarian aid to displaced Palestinians in Gaza. In a statement today from the White House, Sullivan said Israel has agreed to open up the Kerem Shalom crossing on the border of Israel, Gaza, and Egypt in order to ease congestion at the Rafah crossing. Everything is in short supply as rain has made an uncomfortable situation worse for people living in this tent camp in Rafah. The water flooded our tent. I woke my 7-month-old child who was soaking wet, says this woman. We have just 1 blanket for 5 people. The Middle East war is top of mind as EU leaders meet today in Brussels. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo says the situation in Gaza has worsened dramatically since members met in October. The aim today to hammer out a common position on the conflict.
What should be our objective is that the human suffering should end on both sides, and there's been way too much human suffering.
For these Israelis, to see their loved ones returned alive is their greatest hope. But for 6 more families today, that glimmer of hope has been extinguished. Chris O'Neill Yates, CBC News, St. John's.
All but one of the leaders of the EU are in support of giving Ukraine billions of dollars in new aid. The exception to that united front is Hungary's Viktor Orban, who has close ties with Moscow. But as Briar Stewart reports, war-torn Ukraine needs more than financial help.
The 27 EU members don't all agree when it comes to Ukraine, but most vow their differences can be put aside. Hungary's Viktor Orban is the outlier, literally. He was advised to step out of the room when the bloc voted to approve formal EU membership talks with Ukraine. Things can't be solved every time by going outside, said Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz. That's reserved for special moments, such as the decision we reached now. Orban, who has strong ties to Vladimir Putin, didn't veto that move, but says he might in the future. If the EU doesn't unfreeze funds being withheld from Hungary over concerns about the country's rule of law. As for now, he says he will block an EU deal to provide Ukraine with 50 billion euros. So those discussions have been postponed to the new year.
I'm extremely confident and optimistic that we will be in a position to fulfill on our promises to support Ukraine.
President Zelensky, are you confident you can persuade Congress to give you the aid?
The holdup of EU aid follows the debate in Washington earlier this week, where Republicans have blocked more U.S. support for Ukraine, despite personal pleas from both the Ukrainian and U.S. presidents.
I believe Ukraine will get the money that the EU has promised it.
But this political expert says the bigger problem will be if the U.S. doesn't reach an agreement.
There is undoubtedly many types of ammunition and other military aid that only the United States can provide.
And that is what Ukraine says it desperately needs as it tries to seize momentum on the battlefield in a war that Ukraine's top general now describes as a stalemate. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Coming up, the Nutcracker isn't the only ballet to look forward to this time of year. Up next, we hit the seas with some local nautical pirouettes. You'll want to see this.
With so many hundreds of figures going in and out the door on Hornby Street in the last quarter century,
It seems a little unfair to be able to use so few in our random sampling just now. What about Ernie Colton and Percy Harvey? What about Judith Evelyn and Susan Fletcher and Ray Norris and Margaret Fuster and Irene Robertson and Juan Root and dozens of others? Well, it's been a haphazard little selection, governed in part by the pictures available. It was meant only to stir up a few memories, and it has surely done that. If anyone asks, what about the Calanges family, who were always so versatile and who were on the air before CBC was, the answer is that some of them, Angelina, Geneva, and Mary, all led by George Calanges, are in the studio right now. Do you remember their show, Continental Varieties?
Step aside, Nutcracker. Last night, another ballet took center stage in Vancouver. False Creek ferry boats put on a dazzling performance just off Kitts Point in English Bay. Take a look.
We always light up the harbor, but we've never really called it an event before. And then we were approached by some schools that wanted to bring their choirs down. And then our partner, the False Creek Ferries, they offered to do their boat ballet, and voila, we added some hot chocolate, and it's called an event.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
This time of year, everyone's looking for something to do with their family, and preferably something that's free and accessible, and that's a really important value for us, to be open to the community. We do events like this, Family Day. We were overwhelmed at Family Day. We did a free event, and we had a lineup around the building for the entire day.
A beautiful sun, we're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland.
Well, it was a lot of fun. Everybody was already having a great time at the Maritime Museum with the event, and we had a blast taking part in that. They have this wonderful spot in Vanier Park, but it is a little dark at night in the wintertime, so it's tough getting people out here. So this was a way of bringing people out to Heritage Harbor to enjoy this beautiful view, to enjoy the boats, and to have some fun. Yeah, it's fun for the ferry drivers too. This is the kind of thing that we look forward to doing.
By the fire, the face
Good night to take in the boats and some more clear weather to come. Is that right, Darius?
That sounds about right. We still have some clouds sticking around, but there will be plenty of sunshine here in Vancouver right through the weekend. And for pretty much most of southern BC, they will get at least periods of sun, even if they do get some cloudy points at times. Now, in terms of temperature, I did mention that we're going to get quite chilly in some places. For most of southern BC, we're staying pretty similar with fluctuations of maybe 2 or 3 degrees, but up in Fort Nelson after tomorrow, we see a pretty major drop in temperature down to -9. Meanwhile, surrounding areas in the northeast see temperature come up. So it's really a system that's up further north that's just affecting really just Fort Nelson. Although, again, as we see some precipitation move in, some places might feel a little bit chillier because they will be getting some snowfall. Because we have 2 snowfall warnings in place, 10 to 20 centimeters expected. Again, just inland parts of the central coast, including Bella Coola, and then just east of Prince George and Quesnel, we're expecting in the McGregor region to see some decent snowfall. And we can see that here, that system rolling through. North Island continuing to see rain. Again, this is just model data, but this is what we're seeing live as well. You can see that system going to roll down and hit the Columbias, and that's where we see some more snowfall. Potential for some of it to break into the Okanagan, but not going to see too much. And this is when we may see some rain in Vancouver early on Saturday. But it's not looking very likely. I don't think it will happen. I don't expect we'll get snowfall in the local mountains either. I don't think that precipitation will make it here, but it's just going to pass just above us for other parts of the coast. Now, if we take a look, if we roll this forward, here we go. We can see our conditions for tomorrow. Plenty of sun and cloud across the board tomorrow, with a chance of some wet flurries coming to some parts of the interior and the lower mainland as well. But again, not guaranteed by any means. And here in Vancouver, pretty sunny weekend ahead, pretty clear weekend. Late on Saturday, we see some sun in the afternoon especially, and then those showers likely to return early next week.
Okay, and Darius, prep the finger guns because it's time for... Fun Fact Friday. What do you have for us this week, Darius?
What is better? Well, earlier this week, I was watching the 2006 Christmas classic. Not really. It actually bombed at the box office. Deck the Halls. And in that movie, they have Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick acting, and they are competing to see who can decorate their house the best. And it not culminates, but part of the peak of the movie is when Danny DeVito says this.
I really want my house to be seen from space.
It's quite a goal to have. And we know that we can see many lights on Earth from space. This is a view at nighttime of all the lights that you would typically see at night. But is it possible to have just one house be visible? Well, NASA was interested in the question. I don't think because of the movie, but they were taking a look at whether the lights that we see in parts of the United States actually become brighter during December, during the holiday season. And anywhere that you see green on these maps, you can see that we get a little bit brighter during the holiday times. And so across parts of the southern US, including Florida, and even some places in Europe, like in Turkey, you can see little spots of green here, we do see the lights become brighter. But what about your individual house? And that doesn't include Canada, because snow is so reflective that we wouldn't be able to see it, because any snowfall in December would really skew the results. So what about in Canada? Well, some physics students were able to actually answer this question by looking at whether it would be actually possible to do this. And their answer was that it would take 2,638 lights. They did the math, they broke down the numbers. So if you were to just wrap all these right around your chimney, that's how many you would need to make your house visible from the International Space Station. So you could do it, but you'd need very good conditions, no snowfall, and you would need
no snow,
no light
chimney,
pollution,
and 2,638 lights.
Yeah.
All right.
Good luck.
Challenge accepted, people. Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
Closed because of fire, they were determined to reopen. And today, the beloved Ovaltine Cafe welcomed back diners. We'll take you inside right after this.
Oh, I see. It is legal.
Yeah, it's legal.
Right. The house housing situation is pretty desperate out there.
Absolutely desperate.
Yeah. I'm from CBC. I just want to find. We're doing a story on the housing shortage, and we just want to find out how you guys work in here.
I'm not qualified to do any type of interview. But
Okay.
if you can give me your name and phone number, we can contact the regional manager and have him call you back.
I can't phone them myself.
No, you'll
So they're going to phone us. They've got my cell phone number, and they'll give us a call as soon as the guy is available. We'll have to wait. Well, I think we'll be back about 3:30. I'm trying to get the mayor. Okay, and other than that, I'm waiting for this guy to call. If he phones me, I'll go interview him.
But even to say that here's his business, they're very busy, and then the downside to it, Green's saying, yeah, fine, but what about somebody who can't afford the $65?
Okay. Yeah, we're 6 minutes city, and I don't know. I don't know if cold turkey, we'll have room for cold turkey at that point.
I'd like to get the graphics and tell them what they don't need. They're down a guy today. He's sick, so.
That's tough.
Okay, Phil's here today.
Phil's here. He got some pictures of early morning traffic and stuff, coming through the slush and the muck.
Yeah.
International, U.S.
Back in the fold now?
No.
He will be.
There's
fully
enough to put a
immediately.
piece together, you know. I mean, okay, I'm blue skying, but if we can get Mercier, and we've got Crandall from the night of Sam's speech, and we've got he and the other three as they walked out, and if we get a clip today, we can put a piece together.
No problem.
That, in their minds, is a crisis.
Bob Scraig works for Wall Financial, a company that never...
It's very generic.
Hi.
Hi.
So that current affairs story for the spring ratings break, I don't think should be a story. I think it should be a series. I think we should expand it, in fact, rather than just,
Yeah.
Do you think we have enough material for a 3-part series?
Well, I think we can get enough.
So it's Steve Hurst anyway, right? Of CNN?
Yeah.
I'm just going to check on the Premier's clip at the airport.
All the legwork working in the sun and probably just
Chris Graham, Bruce, Dave Mercy, and Doug Mowat, and
Tell me when you're ready for a level. These are the signs of the time. No room, nowhere to live. For many people looking for rental housing, the search brings them here, to an agency that will give them
People who voted in a competition to decide the city of Regina's official bird are chirping about the results.
As Jesse Anton explains, rumors are now flying around, with some even alleging foul play.
On Monday morning, after voting had closed the night before, the results were visible, and it appeared chickadees had clearly won. They had thousands more votes than the runner-up, the red-breasted nuthatch, but the week before, one Regina man had noticed something.
We went to bed, we slept well. I had no idea that something was amiss, but when I woke up in the morning and I checked the totals, lo and behold, the chickadee had garnered 2,371 votes overnight while Regina sleeps. And that got me thinking, you know, Big Chickadee was behind this. Something was afoot.
When we put that question to chickadee advocate Ryan Fisher, he kept pretty tight-lipped.
Well, we're not going to count our chickadees until they hatch, and we'll wait for the official announcement.
That official announcement isn't for 3 weeks. And of course, don't forget the Wascana Park staple, the Canada Goose. That was the mayor's pick. But the Canada Goose didn't even appear to crack the top 3. In Calgary last year, same contest. The chickadee got the most votes there and is now Calgary's official bird. But having the same official bird as Regina doesn't flap this Calgary city councillor.
I don't have any problems sharing, though I will just always say that, you know, we had it first. We had it first.
Over in Ontario, the mayor of Guelph was a bit more plucky. That city also recently named the chickadee its official bird. And in a statement, Mayor Cam Guthrie told CBC News Regina's mayor should, quote, be careful as Guelph's chickadees are outfitted with lasers that will patrol our city for any rogue Regina chickadees. So be forewarned, he said. Back in Regina, city officials aren't flapping their beaks about this just yet, but they did offer a statement saying they've heard a lot of chirping in the community about the chickadee conspiracy theory, and added over 11 days, nearly 20,000 votes were cast online. Regina's official bird will be officially announced on January 5th on National Bird Day, but until then, the theories around the Queen City's Birdgate will continue to fly. Jesse Anton, CBC News, Regina.
Do you have a favorite bird?
Oh, easy. BC, Stellar Jay.
Nice.
Canada, greater sage grouse. They look ridiculous. Globally, the lyrebird.
Very nice.
They can make the sound of anything they hear. It's very cool.
Oh, dear.
You?
Oh, hippogriff, pterodactyl, or the lovely, what was it, Canadian cobra chicken? That's my favorite. From favorite bird to a favorite restaurant in this city.
Months ago, a fire damaged a local icon, the Ovaltine Cafe in the downtown east side. It was suspected arson, and there was a lot of fear that the diner wouldn't open again.
But the owners were determined to do just that, and support from customers poured in. Leanne Young headed down to see a community that is overjoyed about the doors reopening.
Hey, welcome back. Nice to see you, yeah. Hey, hey. You're good. Merry Christmas. Like a hug. Okay. That's really family. Some people open the door, Mom, come home. Just you feel really, really warm.
It's nice to be able to contribute to a local run establishment, right? It was really, really sad when the fire took hold because we had been going through a bunch of arsons. And not only did it harm tenants, it harmed businesses. And I think it was just a couple weeks ago to come out and see the sign and see Grace back. It's heartwarming.
I've been down here since I was 14. I'm 59 now. Me and my ex, we used to come here every morning for breakfast. Every morning.
It's a cheap place in the neighborhood that's experiencing so much gentrification. There's so few places like this that are left, and you know, it's also a social space. It feels like a space where people gather. It's one of the last remaining like accessible spaces in the neighborhood where things are cheap, things are good. You know the people around you. You know who's cooking your food, and yeah, I think everyone is really happy to see it back.
I love this street, so I just want to show people downtown east side, the people nice, warm. They love to help people. So you can see I don't have a gate. They use the board, help me to cover it. No one broken the window. They help me watching. They always say, Grace, you need help? I give you a hand. We cannot raise the price. If I go up, for sure, we can make money. But right now, we're thinking people help us, we want to give to back. So we help each other. Ovaltine is not for me, for here, for the whole community.
Great to see it reopened. Awesome. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch our newscast online at CBC Gem and our free app and YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
We will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National, and we will leave you tonight with some adorable dogs who dressed up to meet Santa.